Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Solar Systems, where we help you understand the system your soul goes into. My name is Joe, and today we're going to be talking about Mercury in Aquarius. Now, before we actually get into the specifics of this sign, we need to talk about Mercury itself. So what is Mercury? Mercury is the planet of thinking and communication. But what does that really mean? You know, because a lot of people say it, a lot of people talk about it, and it's just like, oh, thinking and communication. But, you know, people don't exactly understand what that is off the bat. They're really just words, and they're not going to feel it unless you actually give it to them. So here we go. So we have to understand the sun and the moon, right? The sun is basically your outlook and your little lens in terms of the information you're going to absorb when you look at a certain experience, while the moon is the planet of reflection. So this is basically deciding how you feel about this information. So when you actually go through the experiences of bringing all this information and all this light and all this esoteric waters down through your own solar system, you have to go through looking at it and feeling about it. So when you actually have the experience of bringing things through your Mercury sign, this is basically you feeling like you have a really good idea and you want to express it, but you can't exactly, because putting the pieces of the puzzle together takes time. So when you go through an experience of like, oh, this is a really great idea, and then you're like, oh, it sounded better in my head, this is when you're still putting the pieces together, so you're not quite ready. So you have to spend more time and actually experience the little specific details of whatever idea you're going through at the moment, whatever ideas you have about the experience you're going through at the moment. So this takes time. Now, how I like to explain it is this is kind of like a DVD versus a Blu-ray player. See, DVDs, they're bigger discs. They can carry the same amount of information, but they take more space because they use a different ray to read it, while Blu-ray actually uses the blue ray. So when you think about that, Blu-rays are a lot smaller, so you can fit a lot more information into a smaller area. This is kind of what feeling is. When you feel something, there are so many experiences that actually come with that feeling. But when you have an idea, there's numerous ways to feel about that idea, but there's only one idea. You get what I'm saying here? So when you're actually bringing this down through your solar system to be able to express it, you need to find little points within that actual feeling that you had before you can really relay it in the way that you felt about it. Because you can't bring somebody through the doors. You know, you can bring them to that space or that specific door, but they have to walk through it on their own. So when you actually go through this experience, you have to basically get enough ideas, concepts to basically build them a staircase to that, per se. If you think about the song Stairway to Heaven, somebody had to build it. So if you feel like a certain idea is heaven, you have to build an individual staircase for each person that you're trying to bring to that space. So to simplify that a little bit, Mercury is basically you going through the individual details, ideas, systems, and different forms of efficiency to bring somebody to a feeling that you had around an idea. So this is why it may be difficult to actually express things when you first have them, because you more or less just decided how you feel about it and you didn't actually have the idea itself. Now, I know that was kind of a Mercury and Aquarius way to explain things, but that's the point. We're getting to that. So let me just get up there, get a little higher per se, so we can actually talk about a more elevated way to think and communicate about things. All right, guys. So while these trees are, fucking awesome to climb, we got a little problem here that we can't exactly go into this space. So if you see right here, you know anything about nature, 3 leaves of green that's kind of oily is no bueno. Why? Because it's motherfucking poison ivy. So no, I'm not exactly going to be climbing up here because I don't want to get poison ivy. So when we're ready, let's go to a new space. All right, guys. Now, if you do ever have complications with poison ivy, you need to look for this plant right here, which is called jewelweed. Now, no, this isn't a teen's favorite combination of inhalation products. This is a plant that naturally counteracts the oils of poison ivy. And let me show you why they call it jewelweed. I don't want to fall in the water. These leaves are hydrophobic, and when you put it underwater, it makes this nice silvery color, which is why they call it jewelweed. See how it shines? You think your diamonds are hitting? No, jewelweed is hitting because it's hydrophobic. Now what you want to do with this plant is you want to basically extract the fluid inside. So what you do is you break it open like this. And you just rub it on whatever area you had affected by the poison ivy. So enough with the sidetrack. Let's get hopping on the bridge over to extreme fixation in thought and finish the video. All right, guys, now that we've actually made it to a more fixated space, let's talk about the little points that make up the archetype of Aquarius. Aquarius was born from the 11th house. Now, the 11th house is the space of the public arena. How do you conduct yourself in the public arena? How do people look at you, and what has become of this status that you have? Now, Aquarius being born out of this house makes it very fixated in its own individuality because it is the fixed air sign, being fixated on your own way of thinking and communication. Now, you may think that this is a very advanced skill to have in this world, which it kind of is, but in the spirit world, this is literally step 2 to doing your 360 in this ecliptic. Because after you go with the flow, you find a focus, you find a fixation on what you want to think. And then after that, you keep going and going and going until you make it all the way to Aries, where you can actually illuminate and express and create what you want to experience, which is seen as weak down here, but in reality, that is a very high level of spiritual strength in this ecliptic. Now, aside from that little sidetrack, we have to talk about the planets that are associated with it. So Aquarius is at home in Saturn, and it is co-ruled by Uranus. Now, ruler and being at home are basically the same meanings. Whatever space you rule over is the space you feel comfortable to do things or not do things in. Now, you know, when you say someone is just chilling kind of like a lamp, the lamp is either on or it's off. It can work or it doesn't have to. Now, that's a weird segue, but this is actually showing the planet that Aquarius doesn't like, which is the sun. Being expressive, shining lights on what you want to show people is kind of work to an Aquarius. They don't want to do things for other people. They don't want to do things for attention. They want to do these things for themselves. Now, before we actually get into all the traits and stuff, let's move on over and actually express what we want to experience through combining the two of Mercury and Aquarius. Peace. Now, something I neglected to mention was that Mercury in Aquarius can only be tied to one of 3 sun signs. This is Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Now, you may be thinking that one of those 3 may make it kind of difficult for you to actually express in such a fixated way, and it may, you know, be kind of a weird combination when you are so fixated in thought that you want to be so free, but you will be surprised. A lot more of these signs can actually have difficulties with expressing how they actually feel. And this ties back into my whole point about the ecliptic starting inverse as it does to this world and the spirit world. I know there's a little, you know, jumbled way to say it, but, you know, when you're talking about some high-ish level spiritual shit, it gets a little confusing. But my point in this is that Aries starts down here and Pisces starts up there. So having fixation in thought is not as powerful as one may think, which was why I'm going to kind of warn that if you are a Mercury in Aquarius, you should double check that you are actually, you know, gaining these thoughts and gaining these ideas from an internal space rather than an external space. Because you will be surprised how much these people will argue. Any Mercury in Aquarius person will argue endlessly for their point, and they will not likely give in. Now, if they are a more Pisces sun sign, they may give in for the sake of being relatable, but that doesn't mean they're going to change their mind. This is kind of a mutable sign thing, not to get too sidetracked, but these people rather adapt than stay fixated, which is why there may be a little contentiousness in between the 2 signs of your sun and your Mercury, because the sun and Mercury works quite closely together, because Mercury is kind of like the sun's little buddy. It helps it break down the ideas and actually simplify what the sun is trying to express. So with that being the case, bear in mind that even if you are a sun in Capricorn, sun in Aquarius, or a sun in Pisces, be very careful with what ideas you're actually fixating on, because you will be putting a lot of energy into arguing for your point, and it may not even be your own point. It's kind of like Facebook groups in a way. They may all agree to the same idea, but they haven't necessarily all experienced it the same or gone through the same trials, experiments, studies, or actually just engaged with that idea as much as someone might think. So be careful, Aquariuses, because your mind may start playing tricks on you in ways you don't quite understand. And I know you don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. You may not be as focused on your own ideas as you think. Now, another trait that these signs have is that they are fiercely loyal to an idea. I know this kind of bounces off the previous trait, but having fixation kind of keeps you in a very closed space. So this is why I mentioned before that you may think that you are a lot more developed in the mental realm than you actually are if it's not coming from an internal space, because you may have been so fiercely loyal to an idea that was outside of you that you would argue for that and never actually express how you think. Now, why this is a beneficial trait is because if you can find a Mercury and Aquarius person that is extremely loyal to an area of study that you are searching for, they may not be the best teachers, but they will be the best leaders in that area. Now, why that is because they spend so much time in that space. And now, while a talent may be someone trying to go after a gift that someone else has, you still will develop skills in that space nonetheless, because you've spent a lot of time in that space. Now, this doesn't mean you had time well spent, but you still have a lot of experience that whether it is actually good or bad. So this is why Mercury in Aquarius people can be very good teachers. Maybe not by actual teaching, but they can certainly lead by example if you actually, deem this person good enough to follow through that space. Now, the flip side to this trait is that Mercury and Aquarius people will have a very fixated and small-minded view of how things should be done. Now, bear in mind, I said should be done, because they will let you know that this is how they did it, this is how it works, and this is how you should do it. Now, this may be more of a small-minded Aquarius. Obviously, people that have expanded their horizons a lot wider than this fixated person might be will, they'll let you do it another way, but they will certainly tell you that this is not the best way to do it and that you shouldn't do it. And now, you can prove them wrong, but you will certainly have a tall rock to climb before you actually prove to them that there can be other ways to do this. They'll always have that little bit saying, my way's better. But that's a Mercury and Aquarius for you. Now, this may seem super obvious when I tell you, but it's so hidden in plain sight that these signs just always kind of gloss over this fact. Now, Mercury and Aquarius people, since they are a fixed sign in Mercury, this means that they have a very, very good, not even an understanding or an understanding, an overstanding of how they think. Now, what this can do to you if you combine this with the trait of them being a good person to follow, but maybe not the best teacher, you can kind of pick their brain about, how did you think about that? How did you get this so efficient? How did you get so focused in this area of thought? And how do you keep out all negative thoughts in some type of way and stay so focused on what you're doing in the moment? Now, you may have to poke them and prod them a little bit before they actually extract the internal aspects of their own mind, but it will be very useful when they show you how to do it, because they're going to obviously just say, just do it at first. Why can't you do it? I can do it. But this is kind of the mark of a gift in a way, because it's so obvious, it's so innocuous that they don't even think about it. They just do it. But when you give this person the time of day to actually, breathe a little bit, calm down, don't get too changey on your ass, they will show you a very beneficial way to think and show you how to have a clearer mind if they have actually achieved it themselves, because they will have put so much time into that space that it kind of just rubs off on you. You get what I'm saying here? These people have very, very efficient minds and they don't even know it. But that's the power of being a fixed sign. It makes it easy to stay focused and not get distracted by anything else. So use it or lose it. Now, the clear downsides to this is that these people really, really, really do not question how they think half the time. It may be good, it may be bad, but if they're caught up by some external entity, this may kind of block them from ever learning themselves, and they may make it all the way to them being 50 and realize they haven't lived their life how they want it. Now, don't get me wrong, some spirits need to actually take that time to get caught out of whatever magic they're caught into, but Mercury and Aquarius are especially caught up by this since we live in a world so dominated by Saturn energy. Since it feels comfortable to them, or they think it's comfortable, they may just get lost into it despite what's actually going on. And it may take 20 goddamn years until they actually get out of this experience. Now, you're not exactly going to be able to help them out of this experience. They have to do it themselves since they're so fixated. You need to show them a reason. You need to give them greater Saturn energy than they're already caught up in, because when the external world is full of your own comfortable energies, it's easy to get comfortable. And when everybody's so lost into the concept that love, light, follow this spirit, love is the highest vibration out there, blah, 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 comfort will seem very convincing. But you know how it is. Real spirits are always on the time of detaching so they can lighten their load and experience a higher space on their own terms. So if you want to do that, do it. Don't get caught up in this Saturn energy. Bye. Now, I don't mean to say bye so soon, Mercury and Aquarius people, or people who are checking up on this type of energy. But if you like this video, comment down below. Let me know what you would like to do next. And yeah, if you want a reading, let me know. We make them in videos just like this. If you want a little debriefing on your own alignments, your own esoteric tune-up per se, you can email us at solarsystems999. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, follow us on Instagram. We post daily alignments there. And check back for our next video. Peace.